Hello, Internet. My name is Chamomile.
And I, once again, am the goddess Fortuna.
Hey, welcome back to the show.
Hey, yeah, I heard you were playing D&D, or Pathfinder, I guess, but, it's all dice to me.
That's fair. And yes, the RNG is basically the same as real tabletop D&Ds, so I mean, I have to
How have you
assume you
been?
just find that wolf cubs are absolutely adorable, because, just the other episode we were trying to stab one to death, and the dice just were
They
not
are
having it.
so cute. The thing is, generally, I like to favor DMs over players. And you were technically playing right now, so I can't really take your side.
I mean, I guess that's fair. Like, I do GM, 6 days out of the week most of the time, so...
I'm all about that, like making sure that you get all sorts of 20s and your players botch hilariously, which uh, 5th edition rules I understand are helpful about that. Oh, and I can see that we're attacking in the middle of the night, because that is such a good idea. I feel like Sullivan has been involved in a midnight attack on the Stag fortress before.
Yeah, but this time we're actually slightly over-leveled.
And we've succeeded at some quests.
Yes. We do actually have a bunch of magic gear.
Alright, what are we fighting? Oh, hey,
Aha!
zombies.
We have found the zombies. It appears
That
as
is
though
a
there are
weird zombie portrait.
many much
Like,
zombies. Oh, I was not supposed to run there. I was supposed to shoot a guy. We're taking the one attack opportunity and just running right back. That's Sutherland's turn. Yeah, that is a weird zombie portrait.
This will hurt. I'm doing it wrong. The spell is flawed.
Oh, I guess the monitor lizards were slightly in the way, preventing that from being a straight line. Oh well.
So do you think the miniature lizard corresponds to any of Sullivan's...
I'm not sure, because it came with Kiernan. Okay, what the hell? I'm baffled as to what is going on, why I couldn't use any of Ashland's abilities, and why he wasn't doing the dotted lines on his movement anymore, but whatever.
That happens sometimes, I've noticed.
Is now Lindsay's turn, so she is going to inspire courage.
Let's try this way.
So, random topic.
Oh boy.
What is the, I mean, saying the best way, there's obviously not going to be a single best way, but what are the general rules for doing a fantasy magic system? Well, in fact, let's go ahead and open up this discussion by saying, why does Vanxian casting suck?
It's way too. It's not how anyone pictures it. It's way too much effort, especially if you're doing a prepared caster with access to every single spell ever published, like a cleric or a druid. It's not like how people conceptualize spellcasting. Like it was this specific thing in Jack Vance's Dying Earth series, and there was like a short story that Gary Gygax had read that featured preparing a spell out of a spell book. But it's way too detailed, though you probably have a more like mechanical explanation for what's wrong with it.
Well, it does accomplish one very important thing, which the most obvious alternative does not. See, the obvious alternative, whenever someone is like, oh, Vancian casting is terrible, and the main problems with it are the narrative problems, that's not what... It doesn't feel like you're a wizard. It feels like you're doing some really weird video game thing. What it does, however, is it encourages you to use your low-level spells even after you have higher-level ones. So if you're going to replace it, you should replace it with something that also does that. Aspect classes replace it by having very limited spell lists. The spells are mostly unlimited. The general rule is that offensive spells are completely unlimited. Healing spells are limited instead. But it ensures, because each class has a single very specific spell list that is exactly the same, it ensures that each class has some reason to use every spell in every situation, no matter what. For example, as a fire elementalist, your fireball is usually going to affect more creatures than your burning hands, but sometimes you want to affect fewer creatures because you've got a bunch of friendlies on the battlefield. So, the burning hands always has a niche, even if the fireball becomes your go-to once you've got it. Another thing you can do is you can do casting checks, where you always want to pick out the lowest level spell that will get the job done, because higher level spells require higher casting checks, and if you fail a casting check, the boring but obvious solution is that the spell fizzles. The more fun solution is that you roll on a random table of terrible things to happen. A more thematic way of doing it is also you can have... Why won't you cast it? Fine, we'll just shoot him. But in more narrative things, that you can have specific failure modes depending on what spell you're casting. So that, for example, if you fail the casting check on a fireball, it might explode in your face or go off in a random direction. Whereas if you are casting a buff spell, then you might lose control of the magic somehow and cause like a paralyzing spasm in the person you're trying to buff or whatever. You would have to come up with specific effects for every spell in that case, which is the big drawback of that one. It's a lot of effort. I would favor the random table.
A lot of zombies.
This is a lot of zombies.
If you press space, their animation goes faster.
Yeah, I've done that occasionally, but then it's just by the time I press it, they always seem like just almost through it anyway, so it hardly makes it... Oh man, this is a lot of zombies. That monitor lizard is expendable.
Oh good. Oh good.
Well, I don't know which Fey friend the monitor lizard is, but we probably don't have to bother figuring it out because it's going to die now. So I guess now we can answer the question of what happens when an animal companion dies in this game. Do you get them back?
I mean, you are in easy mode, so it might just pop back up after we finish the battle,
It's true.
because that is an option. When you were, as I recall, when you were running this game for Requiem. Where is Requiem, by the way? Like, I keep trying to find him.
I don't know. It's not like he tells me where he runs off. I was going to ask, we kind of got in the thick of things, but I was going to ask if you were here to smite Requiem again, because, I mean, if so, I got to assume he's got some preternatural ability to know when you're coming and not be here when you arrive.
I don't. Yeah, somebody's helping him out, and it better not be you, unless you want to start having your players be successful all the time. Like, and I know what's the fun in that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm definitely not. For starters, I have no idea when you're coming. And for another, for a second thing, I've always been very careful about offending you. I don't know if you've noticed.
I mean, you say that, but you did befriend Requiem at some point.
I mean, look, he was the only one who stuck around with my YouTube actual play plan, which then became a Let's Play plan, because you can't do an actual play with two people. In fairness, I guess we were kind of already friends before then. So, no, aha, this is even better. See, he was one of the earliest supporters of my professional GMing, which means he was integral to me, rolling just ludicrous amounts of dice, usually to the detriment of my players, on a weekly basis. So ultimately, befriending Requiem was like a necessary prerequisite on becoming like an impromptu avatar of your way.
I suppose that's fair. As I recall, in that game, the rule was
This should do it.
if you can get the body off the field, they're still alive.
Right. That's how I've always liked to do it. Once you go to below 0 hit points, you are down and incapacitated, but you will regain 1 hit point every hour until you are back at 1 hit point. So long as they can grab your body and get it off the field, you'll be fine. But, if the body is left over at the end of the field, it is still left on the field at the end of the fight, then the bad guys presumably finish you off in some manner.
You also had a system for resurrections after, like, the third death? The fourth?
Right.
I don't know how many it was in that you came up with that.
At some point it became clear that my anti-death precautions were insufficient, and so I made some new ones. There's a large number of zombies.
It's practically a zombie apocalypse.
Yes, going back to magic, though. Because, narratively speaking, magic can go on a spectrum of hardness to softness. And I am, somewhat curious to know your opinion on how hard or soft it should be. Loosely speaking, magic can go, on a scale from Tolkien, where its exact abilities are very vague, and, very sort of intuitive with no explicit rules at all. You do sort of, you get that when the orcs show up on Pelennor fields, that Gandalf cannot call down a meteor swarm to destroy them. The exact limits of his abilities are never stated. It's not even clear, under what circumstances he could do again a spell he has done before. But you get that he can't do that. Then on the other end, you have the systems of magic that Brandon Sanderson has popularized, where they are very well defined, have very exact limits, and they do things like slow time down for as long as you can consume a certain type of metal. So there's a fuel source, and the fuel source lasts for a certain amount of time based on how much of it you have, and you can keep using the power for as long as you have that. There's a lot of very exact rules to it. And then, the conflict of the story all comes out in the characters manipulating those rules. And that felt like it was halfway through a sentence, but now I've realized I don't know how to end it. So that was a perfectly good sentence by itself, so just put a period on the end of it, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it just because I don't think this is your specific. I like a magic system that is pretty soft. I'm relatively aligned towards that sort of magical realist, fabulist style where the point is not that there's a specific system, but like it's about the imagery, it's about the emotion of it and within the story. Like you can't do anything, but like it's not really about the specific set of rules and working through that.
And it is true. I think people have gone way too nuts over Brandon Sanderson specifically. Trying to do magic systems in the exact same style as him is, anytime someone does something cool, there's a bunch of people, a bunch of amateur authors will try to imitate it exactly, which is just, it's not a good idea. Don't try to be the next Brandon Sanderson. You're never going to be better at being Brandon Sanderson than Brandon Sanderson. If you want that plan to work, wait until he dies. You should be trying to do your own thing. Or if you must do pastiche, do a pastiche of someone who is dead and cannot, win the crown from you by default.
Like Full Metal Alchemist is pretty interesting how they set up the rules and then immediately fed on pulling them apart. But
yeah, it is definitely, if you're setting up specific rules, then you have to have your protagonists like from episode 1. And we're talking about Full Metal Alchemist, so I'm talking in episodes now. You don't necessarily have to do it from chapter 1, to be clear. Chapters and episodes aren't usually equivalent between novels and TV shows that way, because a chapter is unlikely to be consumed entirely by itself the way that an episode is. Although that's getting to be true of TV shows too now, thanks to Netflix and other streaming services. But the point here is that when you have a specific set of rules, the fun in that comes from your characters figuring out clever ways to subvert them, or how the setting is changed when they are simply shattered entirely by some, ritual of godly power or whatever. That sort of thing, Once, if you're going to give your setting rules, your magic system rules like that, then you should definitely be setting out to break them, and especially to just munchkin the hell out of them. That is both more plausible, People should be testing the limits of the world universe, seeing what they can get out of this universe's rules because they live there. And it's also just more fun. Like that is the advantage of having a hard magic system, is that it lets your protagonists your magic using protagonists be clever with the abilities they have access to. And this can even extend to sort of middling stuff like Harry Potter, where there is a huge library of spells, characters have pretty broad access to them, And they can use all these different spells for problem solving, but, once you have a spell to unlock a door, you should no longer treat a simple locked door as though it is, any kind of real obstacle. It should always be a question of, how can the characters use the abilities at their disposal to solve a problem in a non-obvious way.
Yeah, the problem with Harry Potter is like there's so many spells that can do so much that how are there any problems in the setting? Like, because there's a spell for everything, and spells don't really have that many restrictions. You'll occasionally get a spell that has some sort of restrictions, but usually there's an equivalent. Like Avada Kedavra, oh, it can kill somebody, but it's like there's clearly a ton of spells that can kill people.
Right.
Avada Kedavra seems like a downside because it's like that's all it can do, and it's pretty easy to counteract as it turns out. You can hide behind a set of curtains.
Yeah, Avada Kedavra is considerably less useful than just a regular gun, which, in the Harry Potter setting, wizards are weirdly averse to using Muggle technology for any reason. I think that's fine as a setting conceit. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense on careful examination, but it does require careful examination to figure out how that works, so, I think it's sufficient, albeit not ideal. But it is more interesting to create a world where, if you're doing urban fantasy, like, obviously, if you're in the fucking Iron Age, then technology can't do a whole lot yet. But if you're doing an urban fantasy, then it is usually more interesting to have, wizards be aware of technology and to use that whenever it is more useful. Like, a pistol is considerably more effective than Avada Kedavra because you can go straight through barriers. There's very few things that can stop a pistol at close range that are just like, around a house. Whereas Avada Kedavra, it seems like any solid object can block that. Honestly, it's kind of amazing that it goes through people's clothes, considering that curtains can stop it.
This is an obscene amount of zombies, but as I recall, there were an obscene amount of zombies in the actual tabletop.
Yeah, like,
I don't know
in
if there
fairness.
was this many, but there was a ton of zombies.
This is an inherited flaw, which I'm always more forgiving of.
Why did the bandits have a bunch of zombies lying around anyway? It's like, none of them are necromancers.
Paizo really seems to enjoy mixing monster types together. Like, they seem to think that makes an encounter more interesting. Ultimately, zombies are pretty boring beatsticks, and the bandits inside are, for the most part, except for the specific named characters, also pretty boring beatsticks. So, like, trying to have some monster variety is definitely a good thing, but I do kind of feel like at some point there was a corporate mandate to have at least X amount of different monster types, at least X amount of different stat blocks, basically, in every adventure, and then that got cargo culted at some point, and now people are just, checking that off a box without really understanding what it's for. You want your adventure to have a theme. You don't want zombies to show up in the middle of a bandit adventure with no actual necromancer bandits to produce them. They did, by the way, have some explanation for why they were here. It was dumb, and I forget what it is.
Now, I wonder if the bandit with the leather crop top is going to show up.
Strike with all your might.
I don't know if you remember that.
I'm not sure. I also can't remember if that was an official Paizo art or something I found on the internet, just Google image searching for, fantasy bandit.
It was an enchanted leather crop top, so somebody ended up having to wear it.
Oh, I think that was the Stag Lord's thing.
No, it was one of his minions.
Was it?
Now, which of the twinks do you think would wear the enchanted leather crop top? Or would they fight over it?
Kiernan, alas, cannot wear it. He is too sexy for his shirt.
Alright.
So it would come down. I think both Prince and Gray and Ashlan are light armor wearers, so they both want it. And yeah, they're gonna have to. I mean, obviously, the way that you resolve this when you're a trio of Fey Twinks arguing over clothes, you have like a modeling contest that Selwyn judges.
This should do it.
Selwyn passes judgment on who wore it better, and in accordance with the best flute player getting the best flute, whoever wears it better gets to have the crop top.
We did decide at one point that before Solomon showed up, this was not a love triangle. They were just a group of friends. She instigated
Right.
that somehow. Which, she did get character growth in the game. She did end up breaking up the love triangle. After which, Cam said that she lost her sorcerer powers. She had fallen like a
Yes.
paladin.
You offend me.
I mean, there is a.
We won't falter.
I can never find it anymore. I know someone took screen caps of it, but there is a thread from 4chan's traditional games board from back before 4chan turned to shit, where it was just a list of jokes about classes other than paladins falling for doing things unlike the stereotypical class behavior.
You right.
Like, oh, your rogue failed to steal, failed to pick the pockets of that passing noble. Your rogue falls. You can't sneak attack until you get an atonement spell.
A calculated risk. Tear them apart!
MVP Amiri, as always. There's a really excessive amount of zombies. Oh hey, Prince and Grey leveled up.
Yeah, let's just loot some bodies here. Only the zombie lords had any loot. An excessive amount of zombies, and they don't even have any pocket change left on their person. Oh, hey, but this random dude does have 723 gold coins.
That's like what, $70,000 or something?
It's $100 to a gold coin, so yeah.
You just have some walking around money.
Yep. That's right, we've already got color spray. I don't know, I guess grease comes in handy in the tabletop. I don't know how useful it will be in a video game, but...
I'll share my pot.
So we
there's an
attacked in the middle of
obvious
the night.
flaw in the wall here. Is there a... Aha.
Forget it.
That is unfortunate.
All right,
Yeah, on
here we
the
go.
tabletop, we attacked in the middle of the night, despite the fact that several of our players did not have dark vision. It went very poorly.
At like level 2. Having done no side quests at all.
Look, everyone knows you skip the side quest until after you beat the boss. Right? That's how you play a video game. Or any game.
Oh, well, there he goes. Now, let's go ahead and attack this brawler for now.
This will hurt.
You're not funny.
So it's never actually explained what his connection to Narissa is it? I think you mentioned in one episode. Like, what she is trying to do with him.
Yeah, it's definitely not explained, like, what her end goal is. Like, because she is a Pathfinder villain, she seduced him somehow. But
Oh, of course.
other than that, it's not really clear, like, to what end.
You deserved it.
So apparently, the way that succubi are written in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, you can deal damage to them by being gay.
That's right. Do you remember the exact wording of that?
I'm gonna see if I can pull it up. Hold on. Rejection vulnerability. As succubi are beings of pure lust, creatures that reject their lust can metaphysically harm them. When a succubus fails a diplomacy check to embrace a request, or when a creature succeeds at its save against a succubus's mental spell or ability, the succubus takes 2d6 mental damage.
So the succubus does have to actually initiate.
Yes. But then she takes damage for...
But yes.
She takes homosexual damage. Like, I thought it was weird they made that a damage type in Pathfinder.
And it took me a second to figure out you were probably joking about that. Next time, I'm like, wait, is that a thing? I was like, no, that's too far. That can't possibly. So the hilarious thing here would be if that was in fact an actual damage type, but I'm actually pretty confident, after thinking about it for a second. Fairly confident that no. That was a
For
joke.
once! For
Right?
once it was a joke.
I mean,
So,
these bandits have just $1,900 just lying around.
as one does. So, in the tabletop version that we did you have an idea for what you were going to have Narissa's plan with the Stag Lord be?
I mean, basically just a minion to keep the area cleared out. While, because she was searching for the sword that was also her ability to love. Spoiler alert. And so she didn't want anyone else in the area. The last thing she wanted, was for someone else to come to the place, find that sword, get it, and then leave with it. Because, and this was in order to justify why Nerissa wanted a broad domain over the area. I found her canon backstory to be kind of lame.
It's my time to shine.
So in order to justify why she needed broad domain over the area, the idea was that she did not know that the Lord of Pitax had recovered the sword, had it in his possession.
Ah.
Is that, he was responsible for its creation. Not directly, but, it was her doomed love affair with him that led her to forging her ability to love into a sword. And then through some kerfuffle between the two of them, it became lost in the Stolen Lands, and he had actually recovered it. Because he did have his fingers all over that place, especially over west. He had outposts down at the south of the starting area. He had his barbarian allies over in the western area. So, yeah. This is a much more reasonably paced, I have to say. Like, this fort, there's a couple of bandit encounters. There's a big boss over there we're going to have to deal with. There were just so many zombies. Probably didn't have to be that many zombies. But again, in fairness, that is an inherited sin from the original. Is anyone hurt? Nobody is hurt.
Should do it.
Definitely not Eleonora.
Yeah, that's at least Meg's 1B. You're gonna have to switch that out for a giant centipede at some point.
Yeah, we have the
Oh,
respec
oh.
mod installed, so if nothing else, that should be able to do it. But then I have to figure out how that respec mod actually works. You are already doing your song and dance, so... Ah, he knows the good spells.
Oh shit, he's a player character. He didn't knock us out, though.
Yeah, just... mainly just because of the difficulty, I have to assume. Alright, we're putting the A-team on you. There we go, problem solved. But yeah, so one thing I was getting into while you were gone is the Magic the Last Airbender or Legend of Korra approach to magic systems,
Calculated risk.
which I feel like is a relatively easy one to get right, and that more people should try to use as sort of a default. People are using Brandon Sanderson's style as a default because he's got real popular for a bit. I do think he's finally starting to wear off a little bit, but what that had is it was a magic system that was split into a finite number of, thematic styles. The exact limits of the styles was not, clear, but they had a very strong theme to them, and the basic abilities, and especially the abilities of the protagonists with those styles, was generally a very well-known quantity. Coming up with a couple of different styles is relatively easy.
We won't falter.
And then you don't have to figure out an exact set of rules or an exact list of magical abilities. You just have to keep your characters on theme and, you know, be sure to establish what exactly their theme can accomplish.
This is where I step in.
So, more people should do that sort of thing.
Yeah, the problem with, and particularly in literature as opposed to a tabletop game, with over-explaining how your stuff works, is I feel like you can get into disenchantment where it's just so mechanistic that it's not interesting anymore.
I mean, you say that, and yet Brandon Sanderson is one of the most popular authors of the current fantasy genre.
I mean, I haven't read Brandon Sanderson, so I have no idea if that critique would even apply.
This will hurt.
And he definitely has a limited number of magic powers that do very specific things and tend to interact with the laws of physics in a specific way. Like, I never read the book that this was from, but one of his was someone had the magic power to alter which way gravity pulled them.
And sometimes you can even make the disenchantment work for you, like in not the Lies of Lochmore, Kingkiller Chronicles. You have the sympathy magic, which is the primary magic that's very like scientific in the way it works, and it's sort of treated like a science. But then they have naming, which is much closer to what we think of as magic. It's much more mystical, and there's sort of this divide between the sympathy magic and the naming.
These lands are mine. I won't let you take them from me. Forwards!
It's pretty good boss music. How much you want to bet that there's, you know, a 5-second delay between the ending of it and when it starts to loop properly.
It was just such a weird mistake.
It's such an amateur hour mistake for, you know, like, a game that is, you know, despite its flaws, nothing else is amateur about it. Like, it might not be like that dungeon was a bad dungeon, but that's the kind of mistake that professional games make sometimes. The looping issue is like an I haven't figured out how to make video games issue. That is like a 15-year-old's first project kind of mistake. Absolutely baffling. I do like the music though. Like,
It's been going on a while, so
yeah, I don't think it's been through a full loop yet though. Yep, there it is. Doesn't loop.
Calm down.
yep.
Not dead yet.
Okay, you need to die. Physician, heal thyself.
We can do it. Strike with all your might. I'm wounded.
You sound so surprised. Didn't realize this could happen.
Yeah, he's one of the Fae friends. He didn't. He legitimately did not realize that could happen.
Holy crap, how many people made their save against that? More than I expected, that's for sure. Alright, that'll take care of him for a hot minute. We are doing a ton of damage, but not killing people. That's distressing.
Especially since we're on easy baby mode.
Yeah.
So I pulled up the Kingmaker Adventure Path Part 1, and the leather crop top was indeed from the book.
Ha!
Oh, and Kiernan is out.
He is. I have someone who can get him back up. I just need Ashlan to get a turn.
Now, it looks like their clerk is down for the moment, though
Yeah.
I do wonder what sort of cleric serves a group of bandits. Like, was that in the tabletop?
I forget. I cannot remember many details of the Stag Lord's troops. Especially because it's not like I care what gods Pathfinder has.
I imagine it'd be a cleric of Norgrimmar, who's kind of their thief god, though, in second edition, you have to be evil to be a cleric of him, because this is according to one of the designers, stealing is always evil. Because there's definitely not any heroic archetypes to, there's certainly not a class built around, being like a person who steals a lot. Like, there's only a major figure in English folklore who is a heroic thief. There's that saying we have, which is, don't steal from the rich and give to the needy.
I wonder what this guy thinks of Les Miserables.
Well, Javert was the good guy, and it's a tragedy because Javert lets oh god, I can't remember the other character's name.
Jean Valjean.
Jean Valjean is a horrible villain because he stole a loaf of bread, and that is an always evil act. Javert is this hero who at the end falls because he gives in to evil and lets this guy go. And that's why he kills himself. Like, that's the only way he can redeem himself, is by killing himself. Because, stealing is always evil. And not just, like, stealing a loaf of bread to feed your family. Like, that's evil. But also, like, stealing money from a rich person who has a lot of money. Like, the Ocean's 11 series, like, those are all horrible criminals. They steal millions of dollars worth of stuff, so they're all monsters.
Yeah, Ashlan, I need you to snap out of it and heal Kiernan.
Weird. I think that might be leather crop top guy.
Protect
Yeah, Dovin from Nisrock is leather crop top guy.
Yes. Axel. Yes.
This hurts so much.
Nobody told me about bleeding.
Okay, you literally don't even have a melee weapon. That's fair.
You deserved it.
It's fine. Our ass isn't getting kicked. Their ass is getting kicked.
I mean, Amiri is so far basically invincible, so...
Now, is she single? Like, could Selwyn marry Amiri?
Protect me. Please. What? A miserable last chapter.
It's fine. It's fine.
This cannot be happening.
Okay, Ashlyn, you are our only healer right now. Wake the fuck up!
So I'm reading Dovin's entry in the PDF, and I was hoping it would have an explanation for the crop top, and it does not. It does not give him any backstory, which is really unusual for a Pathfinder villain. Like, normally they'd have like a full paragraph of like their hopes and dreams that you cannot interact with.
Right. There he is.
Amazing. Now, the story behind the Stag Lord's weird little hat is a stag hat.
Won't kill me.
Not as far as I can recall, but I mean, bear in mind that that might just mean that it was kind of boring.
That's fair. You would think it would have something to do with Rastal.
I'm. I'll survive. I always survive.
Okay, so
Well, we
Amiri
made
just
the
went
SOL.
down, but I finally got my healer back. So I may be
This
able to
is
turn this
fine.
around.
Just imagine Selwyn in the This Is Fine comic. This is fine. I'm made out of water. It's like, what if you evaporate?
was not part of the plan.
Get back up, Kiernan. Ah, damn it. Gotta do something about that guy.
We're down to... I don't know that we might... I think we might lose this.
Possibly.
Yep.
I'm wounded.
Kiernan, get up.
They're having a lover's quarrel.
Calm down. This was not part of the plan.
It's fine. It's fine. Muggs 1B will carry us through just like he always does. Okay, never mind.
There's a surprising amount of difficulty given that we're,
Easy babby mode.
yeah, like, this is supposed to be like, yeah, I'm here for the story mode. We ran around, did a bunch of side quests. Like, I don't know if we got literally every single one, but we sure as shit got most of them.